Hey guys, welcome back. We're gonna throw this under the My Guitars series, but just kind of it's more stringed instruments. It's not really guitars. Not really going to be doing much in the way of playing demos for various reasons. But I had a few different things that I just wanted to talk about, just for various reasons, for sentimental reasons, for the little bit of history that I know about some of them. I thought it would be kind of interesting to share, and also because this knowing what I know about getting into my guitars now, this kind of applies to these instruments as well, so I can try and see what we're doing with them. So the reason for the different view at first is up there is a mandolin, which was built by my grandfather from a kit, I believe, back in the day. I was going to have it down here to actually physically show you a little bit more of it. It's a bowl back mandolin, 8 strings. However, it's very, very fragile. So I don't even try and tune it or do anything with it. It's mainly kept clean and a family heirloom. I would have taken it down, but in my caution to make sure that nothing happened to it, I wired it up there pretty good, actually better than I remembered. So I would have actually had to take down my curtain rods and everything to try and get that down, and that's not something I wanted to get into today. Plus, I wasn't going to be able to play it anyway. So for a future thing, maybe that's something I'll do a little more specifically on that if I can find out any more about the history of the kit, but there's no markings on it, so I don't have much that I can say about that. So, on to the next couple of things, excuse me while I fix this, that we're going to be talking about, um, is another instrument which I have regrettably let get into conditions which I didn't want to. This is a mountain dulcimer, and it is missing all but two of its strings, and the tuners are in pretty rough shape. I don't know if I'm going to be able to save those, but they look like pretty standard vintage guitar tuners, so I think I can replace these safely with something that'll be a little more solid, because some of these are actually not even contacting the gears. Um, the story of how I got this was, I want to say around 1992, because I'll get into why I know that was the year. Uh, my parents and grandparents and I, in my early 20s, went to Branson, Missouri to visit some family, but we also spent a lot of time doing the tourist stuff that you do in Branson. And we actually went to Silver Dollar City, which was a much smaller theme park than it is now. And we happened to cross an area of the theme park where there were craftsmen doing mountain crafts. There was somebody playing a hammer dulcimer. We watched a demo on that, and then they brought out the mountain dulcimers, and my mom always knew. So somehow she made sure that my dad and her picked out a dulcimer for me to take home. So I spent the rest of it trying to learn some chords. I honestly don't remember a whole ton about it, so I'm going to have to look up the strings. I'm kind of going to make that a thing with both my parents gone. I think I want to get this back into shape and learn how to play a little bit on it. And maybe I'll do something on the channel with that in the future. But this was made inside the sound holes, which I don't know if you can see that, are made to look, they've got like the vines and trees on them. It says Cripple Creek Dulcimers, Branson, Missouri. I don't even know if the company's in existence any longer, or if they still do this, but I always thought it was a pretty well-made instrument. But I do know now, with the care and feeding of my guitars, I'm probably going to have to get some shout out Ted Howard feed and wax to try and spiff this up a little bit, maybe clean things up, clean up the tuners, and then find out where I get strings and how these are attached. It looks, yeah, the bridge is actually some little nails at the end. So these are special strings with just a loop at the end and not a ball end. So I'm going to have to look up what that is. I don't even know if there is such a thing as scale length for these. And that's what brings me to the next one I want to talk about. Fast forward a few years. How I knew this was 1992. So we were at Silver Dollar City, and they were walking around. All of a sudden, people started going out of the park to do something. Turns out President George Bush the first was running for his second term, and he was doing a campaign stop. So my parents thought it would be kind of neat for us all to go see the campaign stop. What we did not know was that it was hot as hell, and we were going to be trapped into that campaign stop until it was over because Secret Service, you had to walk through a metal detector, and then once you were in there, nobody was leaving, nobody was coming back. So we were there for the whole stop in hot weather. My brothers and I did kind of notice in the trees surrounding the area where they were doing this, catching little glimpses of light. So there were plenty of folks in the trees watching for stuff too, because Secret Service stuff happens, right? So that was just kind of an interesting story, but that's what I remembered most about it was that my mom always knew. She knew that I was kind of fascinated by it when we were watching the demos, and she made sure that I got one. So I'm going to make sure to fix that up. The second one is sort of another dulcimer. However, this is unfinished. I met my wife to be, and then I met her family, including her grandparents who lived up north from us. And we would go visit them. And amongst the other things, besides the steel guitar that I've got to work on, this was another project he had started. He just liked to tinker and work with things. So by no means was he a luthier, but for someone just doing this off the top of their head, looking at basic shapes, pictures of things that they had seen, and putting together something, this is basically the shape of a dulcimer. It is hollow. If you look at how the head joint is put together, probably not typical of what you would see for a dulcimer. I have no idea, but it just amazes me that a man with no experience doing this kind of thing just decided, I'm going to do this and build this. So I'm of two minds about this. One, I could just leave it like it is as a remembrance of the man who did all of this, or I could get the pieces and parts and try and put it together to make a functioning dulcimer on it. Now, that being said, I don't know if dulcimers have scale lengths, but let me back up a little bit. But as you can see, here, let's try and move them down together. Grandpa's is a little bit longer, so I don't know if how that translates into scale length. And if you look at the frets, how they are all put together on a dulcimer, that's another thing. I don't have any idea about the math to translate this into a larger scale for this. So that'll remain to be seen. But I do want to clean it up. If we ever do anything with it, I think it would be kind of cool. You can see he had the start of his logo back there. There's a P. That's for Peggy. That's his wife, Grandma. Hard to see the JF that's out there, but that's on there. I'm if I do nothing else, I'm thinking we might actually wood burn over what Grandpa did there to preserve that, because it looks like just pencil, and that's going to wear out over the years. The fact that it's made it this far, to me, is incredible. So this is another project. We're going to see what it is. This might just become an art piece, because I don't know that I could even attempt turning it into a functioning instrument, especially with knowing the frets, and I don't know that I would want to risk damaging what he did, because this is a family heirloom. So we'll set this aside. But these are all things I'm going to be working on. All right, we're actually getting into things that I can play, sort of, and any actual resemblance to music coming out of the things that I'm looking at now are entirely coincidental, because I have a lot to learn on these. I just got these to play around with, especially a lot of this was when I wasn't really doing much with my guitars either. So we have a Mitchell ukulele. That's the Guitar Center brand, so they do everything. It is an acoustic electric with Mitchell electronics in it. I'm not going to plug it in because I don't think there's a battery in there right now either. But I just wanted something I could flirt around with in a living room, just sitting around playing. And it's ukuleles are relatively simple, but it's a standard size ukulele. I don't know if that's soprano. I know there's tenor and bass, much larger. Concert ukulele. Doesn't really say. The model number here is MU50SE. I have no idea if Mitchell makes a giant line of these. We just happened to see it and thought, you know what, this will be kind of cool to play around with. It's all wood. It sounds pretty decent. So we'll give a little playthrough for it. I got this in mind that I was actually going to learn to play the Hawaiian version of What a Wonderful World Over the Rainbow combo, just because that's me. I love that song, but I think everybody does. I have not learned that yet, so I'm just going to kind of strum a few chords just to give you an idea. And hopefully this comes through the mic and I've got the sound settings right for it. Good start. See, I've forgotten most of what I know. And after having played guitar so heavily now for the last couple of years, I also have to relearn the fact that different tunings require different fingerings. This is hats off to anybody, like 2 Yards, Shoutout, for instance, that plays multiple instruments with different tunings, and it's just amazing. Go check out his channel, by the way. I'll link it below, just for the hell of it, because why not? That's what we do in this community. All right, so that is the Mitchell ukulele, and then finally, let me set this down. That brings me to the last piece, and this one I actually have a little more of my traditional history that I can bring up for you too. So most of you are the friends in the community know I've been actually pretty lucky in giveaways with guitars and stuff. Well, this actually seemed to start my lucky streak because this was also a prize-winning item. I actually forget exactly where I entered it. It was online. My son had bought himself a ukulele at Guitar Center not too long before this, so I was like, you know what? I want to check into that too. He actually got an open back banjo, and this ended up being one of the closed back ones. I did fart around with it a little, tried to follow something to get some kind of lessons online, but I'm thinking might be something that I actually need to find a couple in-person lessons to try and get it under my finger. I've got it tuned up. I followed Jim Pankey online and learned enough to set the bridge to where the intonation should be mostly correct, and what to do with tightening the drum and everything on it. It's in relatively decent tone for that, but we'll get to that. But so what this is an Oscar Schmidt banjo. There is nothing on it to indicate the model, and I would probably have to look back through my emails to find out exactly what this is that I won. But just for a little background on Oscar Schmidt, they make other instruments as well. And let's go through a little bit of the history. So it was founded in 1871 by Oscar and Otto Schmidt. They became a large manufacturer of string instruments like guitars, ukuleles, banjos, and auto harps. They also had the brands Stella and Sovereign under their name. So for what it was, in 1871, it was founded by Oscar and Otto Schmidt, German immigrants, in Jersey City, New Jersey. And then by the late 1890s, the company began making more instruments, including guitars and mandolins, and by 1903, it was producing more mandolins than zithers. In 1911, they formally incorporated the company, and in the 20s, the company grew to include 5 factories in Europe and 1 in Jersey City, becoming one of the largest stringed instrument manufacturers in the world. I already kind of went over the brands and everything that they did. La Scala was another brand that was part of them. But the instruments were often sold by traveling salesmen, which is interesting. That you think back to the 30s, how stuff is sold now compared to back then. Number one, we have the internet to direct people to things, but big box stores, everything else. To imagine somebody with a truck full of musical instruments going door to door selling them just is crazy to me. That's quaint. Would any of us love it if actually a traveling salesman showed up at their door selling guitars right now? So a little bit more on the history of the company and how it got to where it is now. In 1929, Oscar Schmidt died suddenly while on a trip to Czechoslovakia. After that, the company had some pretty hard financial times, including the Great Depression right around the corner in the 30s. By the late 30s, they sold their fretted instrument division, and by 1939, the Harmony Company purchased the right to the Oscar Schmidt brand names, including Stella and Sovereign. So that's why you see a lot of 40s, 50s Harmony guitars under those names as well. The Oscar Schmidt name is still in use and currently is marketed by Washburn Guitars, so they're a part of Washburn. So that's pretty much the history of my banjo here. Let me get this out of the way so I can see what I'm showing you. Again, I desperately need, part of what confuses me about this, or at least confuses my guitar brain, I've got 5 strings over here, 4 at the first few frets. That's standard for a 5-string banjo. And again, I'm hoping this comes through the mic okay, because I just don't have standard mic setups. I think I set all my noise settings to at least get a decent tone for it. Alright, that at least sounded somewhat musical. You have no idea how much I practiced last night and this morning just to get something that didn't sound out of it. Anybody that truly plays banjo can start swearing at the screen right now, or leave a comment. On that note, if anybody has any idea, like I said, I've been following Jim Pankey for a while, but I haven't actually sat with it and tried to do some of what his lessons do, and I think that's going to be the big thing. If anybody else has any other suggestions for banjo, as far as online resources to try and do something with it, to try and learn a little more, I would love to, because I think that that could be incorporated into some music. Plus, just, I don't know, at my age, at any age, I think expanding your brain, doing different things with your hands and your fingers and your brain, I think is just good for you, because you don't use it, you lose it, right? So I keep trying to learn new things in a lot of facets of my life, period. But music is one of the ones I really enjoy. So I think expanding myself out into different instruments, like getting another mandolin or something to learn as well, would be good. Right now I've got guitar and piano and some trumpet and saxophone under my brain. But I just want to keep adding things. I think so long as you don't stagnate, it helps keep your brain healthy. So with that, that's the best of the rest. I will be back on midweek with some kind of small video, but I just wanted to thank all of you for hanging out with me. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of their weekend when you see this, or week, depending on when you watch it. And until next time.